Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Michael Roub, who's the managing partner and founder of Inflection 360. Michael, welcome to the program.
Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey, I'm looking forward to talking with you. I see that you work as a strategic advisor and consultant with a variety of industries and focused on healthcare and just helping people make wise decisions in managing and growing and even, scaling their business. So give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point of where you founded Inflection 360.
Sure, thanks. I think Inflection 360 sort of puts everything together that had been in my own journey, and so I've tried to translate that and use it for the benefit of others. But I started out coming out of undergraduate. I was a finance major at Wharton, and I went into the investment banking field, where I worked for a few years at a firm called Donaldson, Lufkin Jenrette. I then went back to business school at the University of Chicago, and decided to go right back to investment banking afterwards. This is in the, now I'm in the late 90s at this point. And after a couple more years there, but this time based in the West Coast, I made the jump to the internet, the tech sector right in time to be a part of the bubble bursting.
Sure.
So that was, so I didn't found the company, but I was in a well-funded startup. So that was, I think, my first time where I felt like I was living a bit of an entrepreneur's life and being a part of the dream, and then watching the dream kind of collapse in front of you, and how you dust yourself off and move forward from there. And healthcare was a space in all my time in investment banking that I'd never worked in, and actually really had no interest in working in. I don't know why, but it was sort of one of those places I tried to not work on those deals. But I got connected with via a friend with somebody, an orthopedic surgeon, who had a group of surgery centers in Southern California, and asked me to help come on and help scale the business. So I got involved, and for 6 years, we added locations, added physician partners, grew to 6 very large locations, and were acquired by a public company. And so I felt like now I was not just feeling entrepreneurial, but a healthcare expert at that point.
Yeah.
But then I made, I guess, when I think people have their journeys, I think once you go that route, doesn't mean you can't go backwards or go a different direction. I went back to the corporate world, and I went to a company called HealthWorks and headed up acquisitions for a couple of years, which really brought my healthcare expertise and my investment banking expertise together. And really, at an executive level, learned really running a major corporate healthcare organization, or being, part of running a healthcare organization. I left from there and went back to my entrepreneurial world of running around and working with a variety of clients, working on projects where I had, interests as well, and really just sort of trying to look at new challenges and things that interested me before I ended up back in the corporate world once more at a company called Western Dental, my first foray into the dental space in 2017, and headed up acquisition activity there for a year before I said, okay, I'm ready to go back and do what really gets me excited and work with groups that are growing, or work with the, owners and CEOs and executives and others that are really trying to scale their businesses, learn best practices. How can I help them? So I do a lot in the way of, Inflection 360 was with the mindset of focusing on strategic growth for businesses, and that could be acquisitions, that could be taking in outside capital like private equity. It could be looking at divesting the business, just really a business at their inflection point, and really trying to look at it from any direction. So that 360 is where the other part of that comes into play. And so I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and while I work heavily in healthcare, I also advise clients that are outside of the healthcare space as well on their strategic growth and their entrepreneurial journey as well.
Awesome. Through your explanation there, a couple phrases comes to mind. One is proof of concept. So you took your Wharton School of Business learning, and then you went out and proved the concept of scaling with some entrepreneurial and then corporate and so back and forth. And what I like about that is when you work with an entrepreneur now, whether it's in healthcare or not, they're able to see a dichotomy that you're bringing of proof of concept that it works, because here's some case studies and things like that, but also coming from a corporate background. It's not just you going, you know what, I think I can show some people some stuff I learned on the internet. And I think too many times you get these consultants, air quotes, that are like, oh yeah, I can advise, and here's some testimonials. And I tongue in cheek, make this comment. I do some webinars and I'll show this image of this screenshot I took from Facebook a few years ago. And it's this guy in a t-shirt, tank top on the beach. And he goes, I can help you scale your business to 7 figures. And my point when I show that is, would you trust that guy? Because if you literally have that kind of knowledge, you're probably not going to be in a tank top on the beach. So I like your academic background, your corporate background. And I guess what I would ask is, when now you're working with clients, what is one of the first things that you're drawing from your background and proof of concept to look for to attack first? What are some of those low-hanging fruit aspects?
Well, I really first like to, I tell a client that when we start working together, if it's a clear, hey, we just want to go do an acquisition, that's one thing I can help build, help really build that pipeline. But it's really like, let's take a broader strategic look at the business, build a plan. I really say, like, I won't know your business as well as you ever. So, but let's give me a running start here. So let's really, learn your business. And I'd like to just sit back and learn, have them tell me, learn who the key players are in the organization, learn where their successes have been, have them try to indicate where their challenges are. And usually you'll find, every organization's different, you'll start finding the holes in their management team, or where they're, and if they're particularly young, obviously the management team may be small, and really where, in that case, where there's maybe not where there's a weakness or a gap in terms of experience and knowledge. So it's really just trying to sit back and understand what they know and what they don't know. You have to be a great marketer who has no idea about finance, or I think finance tends to be the biggest gap consistently. And I think people don't appreciate it, but that doesn't mean you have to run out and make somebody a chief financial officer, right? You can go years without having somebody with anything close to that title necessarily, depending on the business, but having, understanding the relevance and the benefits of having some financial expertise, at least in your corner, seems to be a common thread. But I think it's just that understanding where there's an opportunity to fill a void, and see how we can help address some of those weaknesses.
So when you mentioned filling a void in acquisitions, it reminded me of the old saying, ready, aim, fire. And typically people are like, ready, fire, 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 and they don't aim, or they don't even start with being ready. So I would suspect that when you are initially working with an organization and they come to you for acquisition, they feel like, sale, let's go. But you might look at it and say, look, I'm seeing some holes in the bucket. I'm seeing some, cracks in the foundation. We need to shore these things up first. Do you ever find that they are kind of pushing back on that and going, we need to go, go, go? And you're like, yeah, but if we go now, we're going to be looking at this type of an outcome. But if we just take a little bit of time, look at what could happen. What does that look like?
Yeah, and I've always used ready, shoot, aim. So I feel like that's what I see.
Right.
So yeah. We align one way or another in that mindset. I do think that there's, if a business is going strong and sees an opportunity to grow via an acquisition, it just sounds like, hey, we've got the cash, or we have the access to capital to do so. Let's go make it happen. And great. Okay, so if you my first question is, so if you bought it today, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do the moment you own it? Who's going to lead integration? Is there integration? How does it fit within the organization? Is there a cultural consideration? Like, buying it, that has its own challenges, right? I mean, I've made a lot of my career involved in working on acquisitions, but that's just the end of the beginning. You bought it. Now you actually have to create value from it. It has to be more valuable on the other side. Otherwise, why did you do it? It can't drag down your existing operations. And so I think it's really, let's pause and make sure who's going to be in charge. How's it going to affect what they're currently doing? Do we need to bring in new resources? So really, like, you get what you're in for here. Let's think about it a little bit. I mean, I think that it shouldn't deter somebody from going on and making acquisitions, but it's certainly, if you were going to build it yourself and add a whole new business line, you'd have to get resources, people, plan it, scale it. But acquisition is really not different. It's just, unfortunately, now it's just done at hyper speed, and actually the risk is can be that much greater. So I do think it's just really like hit the pause button and make sure look at the eyes of people on your team, and is this going to work? It may be the greatest acquisition in the world, but if you can't manage it, you're going to crush your organization.
I kind of say this many times, it's like when you play chess and you move your piece and you keep your finger on it and you look around, you're like, okay, do I want to make this move? Because I can still, change my mind. My finger's still on it. So, and that's what you're saying. It's like, okay, if you do this, then what? If this, then that. So I think that's a big piece. Too many times people are myopic and they go, ooh, I need to achieve this, but they don't take the blinders off and see the forest for the trees and see potential critical steps.
Yeah, and I think that's where my corporate experience really has come into play there, because I had the luxury, particularly at Western Dental, that last corporate run, of just an organization that had done no acquisitions previously. So here's an organization that you could potentially see challenges when we started to do acquisitions. They had 200 locations that had been built up over 100 years, legitimately 100 years, but no acquisition history. But the team that was leading that effort, the person who became the point, she was magnificent and sort of seeing the forest of the trees and understanding the landscape there and really keeping people to task. So there was a really orchestrated and well-managed plan going on all the way to the finish line until we closed the transaction. So we hit the ground running on the other side of it. And it really, I got to sit in a lot of meetings, so I made sure I knew what was going on, but having somebody who was really up for the task of managing integration was critical, and just not up for the task, but really excelled at it. And so I think that is something that I've seen now over and over again we've seen the successful deals are easy to talk about, but the failure ones are you have to deconstruct what happened there. And I think usually it's a people problem.
Yeah. When we think of the term acquisition, we think, a company acquiring another company, let's buy this and expand. Yeah. But then there's the other side of the equation too, of preparing yourself to be acquired. So do you find that there's some similar prep traits on both sides of that equation?
Yeah, I think this and I've done a lot of work on the sell side too. I think the big thing there is, if you're thinking you want to sell your business, and I do a lot of that work in the healthcare services sector, let's start talking a year. Let's at least be thinking about it a year in advance of when you really want to do it. Because having been on the buy side, I have that perspective of who were the best prepared sellers? What did they do? How their data was clean. The way they presented their numbers was perfect. You couldn't knock holes in it. They pressure tested everything. They knew their story. They knew who their players were. They knew their roles. They really could define very succinctly why they were a valuable business. And when you were going through due diligence, you couldn't poke holes at the way they built their financials and the way they saw their business going forward. And I think that's not something that just happens. Even a well-run business, that doesn't just happen, because your day-to-day activity is not selling your business. It's a one-time event. And, most entrepreneurs will get one shot in their life at it. Some are lucky to do it a few rounds. So, that's where really stepping back and understanding what a buyer is going to want to see. And my goal is always saying is just tell them is let's answer the question before they ask it. Because if you can do that, if you're ahead of the questions, the confidence level goes up, the valuation stays high, multiple people stay interested, and you become a really attractive acquisition target. The moment you start failing and your numbers don't hold up and there's problems or you don't know the answers to basic questions, you're doomed. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes involved. So just like you have to prepare to buy something, you have to do that much more work to sell yourself while not forgetting to run your business in the process, which I see is one of the most common failings of people get so tied up in the sale process that the business starts actually falling apart a little bit, and which can impact the valuation, or in a different scenario, the acquisition doesn't go through, and you've got to do some damage control on your existing business. So that's a common challenge I've seen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, plan ahead. It's like I do a lot of work in financial services, and financial advisors will say, plan for retirement well ahead of retirement. You can't say I'm 64, going to retire next year, so help. So I think that's a really great point. If you think that you might be acquired or look to acquire something, always be, I mean, let's put it this way. If you were thinking of getting acquired and you need to get your house in order, doing some of the things you mentioned, and then you ended up not getting acquired, what's the harm in doing those things anyway? You're probably better off than where you were.
Exactly right. Because you figured out your own weaknesses in the process there, and you've certainly the next time around the work's going to be a lot easier because you're right. You're just updating the playbook as opposed to writing it.
Yes. Well, I know that we talked about your background and pedigree and experience in both corporate and proof of concept. What do you say in addition to that differentiates yourself when you're maybe talking with a new firm thinking of bringing you on?
Yeah. Well, everyone has their way they like to work, and I think mine is a very roll up your sleeves, be heavily engaged in the business. So I'm not looking. I don't look to have 100 clients. I don't look to have 50 clients. I like to have a select group of clients where I can be integrally involved, playing a material role, really feeling like part of the team one way or another, so that I am actively making a difference in the business, and really understanding what are the key drivers and the challenges of that business. So for me, it's utilizing all that, the combination of the investment banking, the consulting, and the corporate experience all together, and figuring out where I can really add the most value. And I'm a bit of a challenge seeker, so sometimes it's those projects. Some of those projects I've taken on may be more daunting. They're not I'm not always the quick wins. I'm not looking for I look for long-term engagements where I'm really involved to help shape and guide an organization.
That's what I think. I think that's what people like to hear when you're trying to do the one call close, and you should hire me, because people are like, okay, red flag. So I think your background, pedigree, experience, case studies, all of those things, and then look, if it's a fit, let me know. And if not, then that's fine, because I'm in this for the long haul. I want years and years down the road for us to be not only friends, but also a wonderful strategic alliance. I think when that kind of mentality is set, then the stage is set for success. So thank you for coming on today. It was really wonderful learning about what you do and how you do it, and what's the best way maybe people could reach out, connect with you, and learn more about Inflection 360.
Again, and thanks for having me on. My website is Inflection, with an L, not infection. It's Inflection 360 in healthcare. That comes up a lot.
Man, yeah. You ought to capitalize the L.
It's a good point. And on LinkedIn, I'm love to even just chat with people, learn their stories. So LinkedIn and Michael Roub, R-O-U-B. I promise I'm the only Michael Roub on LinkedIn. Happy to have people reach out. I'd love to talk to people, and if I can add value, great. If I can point them in another direction, if it's not me, I love to do that as well. And to your point, it's just great to connect with people and develop relationships that, somewhere down the line may turn into something else, and they may not. But it's kind of, it is fun to hear what people are doing in their journeys and how they're evolving their businesses and their careers. So I'm always interested in getting to know new people.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.